It looks like we still have a few people straggling in, but I just want to welcome you all here. You should be here you are at the introduction for 2023 MCAS-Alt, and this is the core concepts part A. I'm here with Aaron Clark and Kevin Froughton. They're the project manager from Cognia that we contract with. I'm also here with our teacher consultants. We have Sheila Chamberlain, Diane Costello, and Laura Hines and Patty Sprano. There are 4 teacher consultants that help us make this process better. I am Deborah Hand. I'm the MCAS-Alt coordinator for DESE. So again, welcome. And I want to make sure that you are in the right place. Everyone is on a listen mode. We will have actual breaks for questions or designated times. Please, I ask you to hold your questions until that time, especially because this is all new information. You spend a lot of time writing your question and then you miss information that we're giving that may answer your question. We've been doing this long enough that we pretty much know what you are going to anticipate. You're all very smart and are right on top of things. So just listen and jot down a question if you have it, and then we will answer them at the appropriate times. This is being recorded, and eventually it's not an overnight that it's going to be posted. We do have to have it edited, and then we have a professionally closed caption. And once that's done, it'll be available at this website, and that website will be in the chat throughout this presentation. It's one that you really need to bookmark once you get it. We keep that updated, and it'll also link you to the DESE site. And we're going to take a look at that in just a minute. If you accidentally close out of Zoom, you can rejoin using that same link. And believe me, I have done that before. So you should be here if you haven't done the MCAS-Alt before. Even if you're not a new teacher, but you're new to MCAS-Alt, this is the place for you. Today, we're going to do part A, and then this afternoon, you're going to come back and we'll do part B. And this gives you all the basic information that you need to compile the MCAS-Alt. However, you need to also sign up for the ELA writing session. This has specific requirements for your ELA writing. And if you are a teacher doing grades 5, 8, or high school, you'll want to sign up for the science and technology session. Both of these have unique requirements, and so you want to come to those. That next session will be Friday, and so there's still time for you to sign up. And this isn't in your slides, but we want to show you the materials site because this is an important place for you to go. This has the PowerPoint that I'm doing today. It also has a sample strand. So even though the recorded version isn't there, it has everything you need. So I'm going to let Kevin bring that up and show you.
Thank you, Deb. So 1 second, I'll snag the share and we'll take a quick peek at that materials page. So here it is, and this should be the link that you see in the chat. If you just joined, I'm sure we'll post it again throughout the day. You don't see any chats that came before you joined, but we'll refer to it as the materials page. And some of these tools and resources Deb will mention throughout the day. So just remember those are here, but what you need for this session, right up here at the top, the 2022 materials, this first link will take you and you are here, parts A and B. So you see the PowerPoint, the sample strand, and then a couple other handouts that Deb will mention throughout the day. These are those links that she was talking about too. As we post the recorded sessions, these coming soons will be links that you can click on, and it'll take you to the video that you can view in your own time. And so they're all here, the writing, the science, if you've coming to those or have gone to those, and then everything else we're doing for update for teachers that have done alt before, and competency and administrator, anything that we're offering this fall, the materials and recordings will eventually be available here. The other thing, and you can get back to the main page right here at the top, and Deb will mention the educator's manual throughout the day today and the resource guides, which she'll go into more depth, but this link here for manuals and resource guides is where you'll find those. It'll redirect you to the departments page, and they're all just listed here for you. There's a couple other goodies on this page that we'll talk about as the day goes on, some tools for you to help you put together the assessment for this year, but just know the big ones are the manuals, and the resource guides are right here on the DESE page. So feel free to click in the chat and at least get to the materials for today if you'd like to have them in front of you as we go. And now I'll give it back to Deb to start walking through the requirements for MCAS-Alt.
Thank you, Kevin. And I wanted you all to see that so you would know when I talk about the material site, what it is that we're looking at. And I also want you to just take a deep breath. We're here, we have an hour and a half together this morning. So just relax. I promise we'll have all the information that you need, and what you don't understand will help to clarify. So just breathe is what I can tell you. So I do have to start with something that isn't very pleasant, but it's for your own benefit. It's about the security requirements. What's important for you to know is that the evidence that you put into this portfolio, the assessment, it must be authentic. It has to actually portray the student's performance. Okay, each individual student. Now, I know some of you are doing more than one student, so you want to make sure that it's not fabricated, replicated, or altered in any way, shape, or form. Trust me when I tell you that every year, but once, since I have been doing the scoring, someone has done something really bad and they get caught. It gets found out. It goes to your superintendent and then the principal, and then there's an investigation for the irregularity. So my best advice to you is to start early. Even though it seems like you have a lot of time, if you break it up into smaller chunks, it will be much easier. What happens is people wait too long, and then in January, they're overwhelmed and they do something they shouldn't do. So please make sure that the evidence reflects the student's unique abilities. You can still do similar classroom activities. You just have to make sure that you're collecting data on the individual student. So that's the only bad part that we have to talk about, but that's just a fair warning because people do start too late. So you're going to start tomorrow when you have the time. So what is the purpose of the MCAS-Alt? Why do we assess students with significant cognitive disabilities? Well, first of all, it is the law. All students that receive public funding are required to participate in the annual statewide assessment. And all means all. That includes difficult to assess students. And we want to make sure that our students with significant disabilities are receiving instruction. When I was first starting, a lot of bead stringing and puzzle completing was done in our classrooms. We didn't do things based on frameworks. So I want you to make sure, we want to make sure that our students are receiving the instruction they deserve. And we want to use those assessments to provide challenging and standards-based instructions. And then we can use that data and evidence to share with parents to help create goals for IEPs and to inform our instruction going forward. So this is the overview of what you have to do in each grade. So depending on your grade, so between 3 through 8 and 10, if you are doing the ELA strand, this is what you have to do. You have to have one reading strand, and you're going to choose either informational or literature. Either one of those you can choose depending on what you want to focus on, and one language strand. And our language strand is focused on vocabulary acquisition. This strand includes a data chart and 2 pieces of evidence for each strand. And again, you'll have to do writing, but that's a separate presentation that'll be held on Friday. It has its own unique writing, but just be aware that if you're doing ELA strand, you will have to complete a writing strand. If you're in if you're teaching grades 3 through 8, you have to assess 2 math domains. So you can see, I won't read them all, but for example, if you're teaching grade 5, you would do number and operation fractions and number and operations base 10. Those are 2 different domains that have to be completed. Each of those domains will have 1 data chart and 2 pieces of evidence. And we're going to go through what that looks like in a few minutes, but these requirements are on that page that Kevin just showed you. So if you want to take just grade 4 and print that out for yourself, you can do that. If you're in high school for math, in only grade 10, you need to choose 3 of these conceptual categories. There are 5 of them, but you only need to choose 3 of them. And each one of those that you choose, those 3, each of those will have 1 data chart and 2 pieces of evidence. And because high school conceptual categories are at a very difficult level, and we'll talk about how we break it down, and we do break down these standards, we're high for many of our students. So what we have done is allowed students at high school level to spiral back to the domain that feeds it. So for number and quantity, you can go down to the number system. And when we show you the forms and graphs program, you won't have to worry about remembering this. The program will do it for you. So don't get hung up on, oh, I don't know which one it goes to. The program itself will help you take care of that. And then for grades 5, 8, and high school, that is going to be a separate presentation because of the requirements being so different. We're going to do that on Friday. But just know that if you're in those grades and the IEP says that your student has to do science for the alternate assessment, we'll show you those requirements on Friday. And so let's start with the forms. I really like this particular slide because it helps you to see what you can get done in the short amount of time, like within the next couple of weeks. Everything but one of these you could get done in the next 2 weeks. The other thing I want to show you is up in the right-hand corner. It says Educator's Manual, page 23. Kevin just showed you where to find that manual, but all these slides have that page number. So if you want more information, that's where you're going to go. So let's look at these required elements. The first one is an artistic cover. This can be done by the student at any time. They can do it at home and bring it in. They can do it on the computer. They can do it during a rainy recess. It just is an expression of themselves. It is not scored. It goes on the front of their binder, and it helps the student to invest in their work. This is their assessment. So it's really nice to have them have a piece of it. Then we have the student introduction. This just tells us a little bit about the student themselves. Again, this isn't scored. This talks about what kind of learner they are, perhaps what their favorite subject is, maybe what they like to do when they leave school. But I would have someone like an SLP, perhaps, that could do this with your student. We have a lot of people involved in our classrooms. So reach out to them, tell them what you need, and have them help you with this. The student's weekly schedule, that's an easy one for middle school, high school. You can just print that off, right? Quick and easy. If you're elementary, and don't worry about making sure that we know every single therapy they do, or, like, because Monday is different than Thursday. What we want is a general schedule and to see how the student is involved in their academics. And then a school calendar. please just insert that school calendar. Get one to keep when you get your binder. You're going to put that on the left-hand side inside the pocket. And this school calendar just includes any non-school days. And if your school calendar is in color because it shows, professional days are in blue, we need the color version, okay? Because we can't tell when you give us a black and white version. And the MCAS-Alt cover sheet, that is, let me just show you what that is. So that looks like this. This is a sample of it. It has the student's name, the SACID, which is the state assigned identifier, and the grade. It's mostly the demographics, and Kevin will go over this a little bit more in a moment, but just know what that looks like. The verification form is the one thing that you can't get done in the next 2 weeks. This is a verification form, not a consent form. Parents may not opt out of the MCAS-Alt. This is part of their daily instruction, and therefore it's not a one-day event that they're keeping their child home from. This is an ongoing assessment based on daily instruction. This verification form just says that the parents have had an opportunity to view their child's work, and they get to sign that. Sometimes they'll write a nice comment about how hard the child worked and how happy they are with you as the teacher. But sometimes parents aren't able to come in, or they don't, perhaps they have a tough work schedule. You are allowed to make a copy of the portfolio and send it home, and then they could send back the verification form. But if you don't get any information back, please just log the attempts on that verification form. So you can write, emailed them on such and such a date, called, invited, whatever. I know that some teachers do things like a MCAS-Alt breakfast near the end when they want parents and others from school to come and view the portfolio, and students are very excited to share their work. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get parents to come in. And last but not least, this photo video consent form. This is not the blank one that you send home at the beginning of the school year for all students. This is specific to the MCAS-Alt. You need to keep that at school, but if you intend to take pictures, you must have that signed and on file at school. Parents are not happy if you've taken pictures and they do not know it, because they don't understand that they are still kept confidential, but they don't want their child's picture out there. So please make sure that you have a signed form before you put the student's picture in it. Certainly it isn't required that you take their photo, but if you do, have that. Now I'm going to turn this over to Kevin and let him show you all these good forms.
Thank you, Deb. So one moment while I steal the share again and share my screen, and then we can dive in and show you the website you can use to start putting these things together. So one moment, please. Okay, so here we are. So it goes by many names. You can call it profile, you can call it MCAS-Alt forms and graphs. It's one and the same. And what it is as I mentioned, a website that can be used to help you compile the forms and data charts and strand creation of everything that goes into the assessment that you'll do for the student. We have to kind of take 2 steps back to lead up to this to show you where to get this, and then I'll show you how to create an account and get you going. But I will put the disclaimer on it. Please, informational purposes only. If you try to follow along with me on your own of doing what I'm doing in your own account, I have to move a little bit fast. So just watch for now, kind of get the high level view. And then either between these sessions or just in the near future, you can do it on your own and start to get a feel for it. But I will show you the treetops view of everything you need to do. So it begins with the obvious question of where do you get this? And if you remember what we looked at this morning on the materials page, right from the departments page, so this will take you, so it says manuals and resource guides, but this is the other nice to get at thing that's on there. So if we click here, And remember, we saw where the resource guides are, and here are the manuals. Tucked down here at the bottom are forms and graphs. So that link is what will redirect you here. So once you get here, you can bookmark it and just save it as a favorite so you can just come back to it. But that's the original path that you go to. So what then? The first thing you have to do is create an account. It is 100% open system. This is not tied to any state database. It doesn't know anything about you or your school or your students. Completely open. So don't think it's looking for certain information. You're providing all the information to it. So when you create an account, you go to registration page, either here, or it's right down here, same thing. And it's going to ask for two things. It wants your email address, which just acts as a unique username to log in, and then a password. And it's asking you to choose a password. What do you want it to be that you will use to log into your account? It can be whatever you want. Just has to be at least 8 characters in length. And it'll tell you if you use a symbol or something it doesn't like. But you're picking your password. It's not trying to say, oh, it was mailed to you at your school. What is your, nope, you're just creating an account yourself like you would for any other website that you're going to, just self-serve. So you give it those 2 pieces, submit registration down here at the bottom, it'll create your account and log you in for the first time. I'm going to go back to sign in though, because I have a account that I'm just up and running already. So I'm going to sign in. And new or otherwise, the first thing you're going to see is this My Account. It will be blank by default. As I mentioned, it doesn't know who you are. And you can technically skip this. You don't have to fill out this in My Account if you don't want to. It's a nice thing, particularly if you have more than one student that you're doing it for. Whatever you put in this information, I'll show you where this comes in a little further down the line. Wherever it needs that piece of data, it'll just populate for you. So if you're doing 3, 4, 5 or more assessments for students on that MCAS-Alt cover sheet, it'll fill out a lot of that for you based off this information. So you don't have to type it again and again and again, repeating the same information. So doesn't need it, but is nice to have, particularly if you have more than one student. What question comes up a lot when people get to this page? They say, I have no idea what my district and school code is. A couple different ways. And if you don't, it's okay to leave it blank here. We're not using this to align for reporting. It's just another piece of information that we can use if we have to, if we need to find out more information about a student. So certainly not critical, but if you want to fill it out and you want to make sure you get it right, step 1 is usually just ask somebody in the front office or the administration or anybody that deals with MCAS stuff. They'll probably just know what it is. It's used for a lot of reporting or student level data things. District is a 4-digit code typically, and then school is a full 8-digit code. And there is a way to look it up. I'll give you the disclaimer warning now that it's not the most intuitive system in the world, but right up here, if you notice, and this red bar, I'll point out a lot of things in this as we go. It's a navigation bar. Sometimes it'll interact with features on the page like saving or printing or creating something new. Most of that lives in this red bar. So just when you've got to do something or go somewhere, look in the red bar, and that's usually where you'll find the button to do what you want to do. In this case, we have a little button here called Massachusetts Codes Lookup, and it's trying to get you to a place where you can look up the district and school code. When you click it, it will open a new tab and take you to the DESE profiles page. There are, even though it says report card, you can try to search in here to find your school. You can try a general search. I don't think you get too much luck with this little search bar here. What I've found is just if you use this map, it's an interactive kind of zoned map. If you just click on where in the state your school generally is, so if we click Worcester, it'll narrow it down, and then we can click into, and then we get a list of schools. So you can look in the public, they're generally all here. If you go there, if you do filters, you have to search for private schools, public schools, collaboratives, but this will give you kind of the general set for the area that you kind of narrow down into. And then once you see the name of the school you're after, when you click on it, and this is the not so intuitive part, this name up here, and then this number in parentheses. So the first 4 digits are the district code. So 0610 in this case, and then that full 8-digit code. So district and then 4 more is the school code. So full 8 school, first 4 district. I warned you, it's not the most intuitive thing, but it's what we got for kind of self-service. Look up your own codes. So try to start with administration or an MCAS person. They can just tell you what it is, but it is here if you want to look it up. You can try the directories, but again, you got to drill down. I personally find the map is the fastest way to kind of get in a general area and then find the school that you want. So just that's how you decode it and that's how you find it. But don't lose sleep over that one. It's not super critical that those are in there. I'll point out just a few other features. Nobody ever scrolls down on this. They come to this page, they go to my account, and then once you get using it, you'll just go right to your students right away, which I'll show you in just a moment. But if you do scroll down, if you want to change your password, if you've shared your account with somebody and then realized, whoops, that's my bank password too, I should probably change that. You can just come in here and change it at any time. Just need to know what the password was and give it a new password. And the place nobody ever scrolls is down at the bottom, but remember this is here. Hopefully you don't need it, but it will save you some pain if you happen to be in the situation I'll describe. There is, if you delete a student, so from the student list, which I'll show you in just a moment, you can just wipe out a student. You can take them off your student list and delete them. Sometimes people will do that by accident, and it's usually right at the very end when they were almost done and they were getting ready to submit everything, and they delete the student and then they panic. It is an interesting phone call. I've gotten the calls from folks over the years where they are worried it's all gone. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Everything's gone. We're not that cruel. It's not gone. We're just hiding that from you. We just removed that student from your list as an active student, but they live down here. So you can click restore. It'll go right back as if nothing ever happened. And boom, everything you did is just back like it was right before you deleted the student. There are some hard deletes in here of if you remove strands or certain pieces of evidence. They do delete from the database to make room for new stuff. And I'll point those out as we go, but this isn't a real delete. It says delete, but it's just sort of hiding it from you. Just know it's there. Hopefully you don't need it, but if you are one of those unfortunate folks that panic because you think you just got rid of everything you did for an entire year, it's just hiding down here. And I've got these samples that you'll see as we've done the trainings. These are what I've deleted, but I can bring them all back if I really wanted to. So just keep that in mind. Back to kind of normal operating procedure. To get going, the first thing you have to do is tell it the students that you want to use the system for. So where you will go most of the time after you log in, you'll just click out of muscle memory, you'll go right here and just click my student list. And remember, open system. It doesn't, even if you tell it what your school is, it's not going to roster in the information or look to Sims to try to find any demographics for a student. You can put fake students in here just as a testing for yourself and then delete them out. It's an open system. It will only put in what you tell it you want to add. So back to this red bar, notice I have no students to begin working on one. And what we're going to try to create is, Deb, that in the materials page that we looked at, there's a sample strand in there. That is the strand, basically the student that we're going to try to walk through and recreate today. So I click to add a new student, and I get a placeholder for a new student. Generic new student, doesn't have a grade, named new student. This is the delete. That's not the delete. So if I click this, it will say, are you sure? But people never read it. They just click OK. And that's what makes the student go away. But again, you can restore that back if you accidentally delete that. But to actually launch in to create work for the student, you select. And Deb showed you a MCAS-Alt cover sheet and one of the slides when she's going over the required forms that you can start working on. And notice it looks, wherever possible, the layout that you see mimics what it is you're trying to create, where it makes sense to do so. So we've got the layout for a MCAS-Alt strand cover sheet. In the first recommended piece of action is to give the student a real name. So we're going to do good old Mike Scott. SACID is another one that throws people. We see some interesting stuff in here of like 5-digit codes that I think are either school or district level local codes. But what it is looking for is that official state ID for the student that's in SIMS. The easy way to remember it is it's a 10-digit number that begins with 10, so 10. All of them begin with 10 and then 8 more numbers after that. So that is what you're looking for, is that full 10-digit state SACID level ID for the student. And notice I didn't fill in 4. It's pulling that in from my account. It knows what the school name I gave it. If I put the district and school code, it would pull that in as well. It knows my name from there. So whatever you put on that My Account, it's going to do a lot of this form just for you. But this top half, the first 3 are always definitely unique to the student with name, SACID. And then we come to the all-important grade. It happened just yesterday. Somebody asked a question about the thing I'm going to tell you right now. If you take away nothing else from what I say, ignore 99% of what I'm telling you, make sure you listen to this one with grade, because it's here in red, which again, nobody ever really reads, but it will bite you if you are in this situation. Once you select grade, so if we do a grade 4, I can save this page and I can still change it because I'm still on this page. Once I leave this page and come back, it's going to lock it in and I can't change it. So if I go back to my student list, and now I see it's replaced it with that student name. If I click select student again, now it'll take me to the table of contents, but where we were was that MCAS-Alt cover sheet, and gone is the drop down. So locked in. Hard rule, cannot change it. You can call tech support, you can call me. There's nothing we can do. We physically cannot change that because after this point, everything for that student has been filtered. It has what I like to call protect you from yourself features built into this. It'll filter only the appropriate strands for that grade. It'll toggle on the science when science is appropriate. The math will change by grade. All the standards that are prompted to attach to all the cover sheets that you'll see as we go are filtered for that grade. And if you change it midstream, if you do a little bit and then change it, it would open up the door for you to mix and match content across grades, which is not appropriate. It has to be locked into one grade and submitted for that grade. So it's a hard stop to stop that from happening. Because if you did mix and match, you're going to get an incomplete, most likely, because it's not the required content for that grade. So it institutes this very hard, firm stop, but just make sure you get the grade correct from the get-go, because the only fix is to start over and do it properly, because you have to do new content most of the time with new standards and new strands available. So make sure you get the grade right when you set up the student for the first time. The rest of this form is all mostly demographics about who the student is and where they are. And then down at the bottom, you'll see 9 and 10 kind of work in tandem. And Deb will touch on this too, but the intent of this is just kind of saying what it is that you're going to include in this assessment. So for the alt, that's 9. So what is the MCAS-Alt? Are you doing ELA and math? But it is possible that people split content. You might have a student that for ELA, they are at an alt level, and that's what's appropriate for them based on IEP team decisions, and that's the meaningful assessment for that student. But they can take the standard MCAS test in math. That's okay. And this is how you would at least designate that this is basically a flag to say, I did not intend to put math in this assessment that I'm giving you for MCAS-Alt because they're taking MCAS test instead. And that's totally okay. What's not okay is to want to do I'll just do writing for alt, and then they'll take the rest on MCAS for, it has to be a whole content area. You can't pick and choose within a content area, but splitting ELA, math, and science, totally fine. There's not a ton of it, but we certainly get a decent amount that happen every year, and that's fine. And this is where you would kind of note that that's what's going to be reflected when a scorer goes to review the MCAS-Alt binder. So that's the cover sheet. I'll We kind of saw it when we went back into the student list again. So let's go student list and then select, because what it'll do most of the time is take you to this table of contents. And you'll notice that was the MCAS-Alt cover sheet. We'll skip over these two. This is where you'll spend most of your time, but I'll show you how to build those out after Deb talks about what is used to populate all the information in those. But all those other forms Deb was talking about, the verification form, those consent forms if you're going to do video for the student or a classroom setting, for consent right there. And there's not a whole lot to do, quite honestly, with these. They're just there to give you the form that you can, this is where you can type in a note about attempts you made to have the parent, but basically you're going to print this out and have a parent sign off on it, that they were given the opportunity to review, or if you can't reach them, you just say that you made multiple attempts, but they just didn't come in to view it, and that's okay. You just want to document the effort, and that goes right into the binder when you're sending it in. The other two, so we can hop right back in the table of contents, those consent forms, if you remember Deb's graphic, those don't go in with your assessment, those stay at the school. So if you're videotaping and photoing and you do that consent form, that doesn't need to go in with your work. That just stays on record of the school that you got permission to do that with the student. We don't need to see that in the actual evidence itself. So I know that's a lot, but that's where I'm going to leave you for now. So we've created a student, we've kind of set up to start to create some strands, but now Deb will take it over and start to show you the components of what goes into a strand for MCAS-Alt, and then I'll come back and walk you through how to create that to get you up and running. So back to you, Deb.
Thank you. I just had to unmute myself. All right, so now you know where to find all of this information. That's a great start. And now we're going to talk about how we assess the students. One of the tools that we need is called the Resource Guide to the Massachusetts Curriculum Frameworks for Students with Disabilities. We just call it the Resource Guide. But you want to make sure you have the correct year. It should say at the bottom, fall of 2022. It does have, yesterday I think people were a little confused because it does have the date of the curriculum framework. So for ELA, it says 2017 frameworks. That's what they're based on. But if you look at the very bottom of these resource guides, it will say fall of 2022. We have 4 of them. 3 of them are for the newest and greatest curriculum frameworks. One of them is just for high school, and those are, we call it legacy science. It's chemistry and tech eng, and those are based on the old frameworks. Our new science and technology are based on the 2016 frameworks. So that's why there's 4. But if you're not in high school, you don't have to worry about that at all at this point. So these resource guides, they incorporate the content from the actual frameworks and break it down into manageable tasks. It's like unpacking the standards. And these are intended for us to use. We can use it for MCAS-Alt, of course, but you can use it for any students. I have shared them when I was in the district. I shared them with the general ed teachers because they always have students that are on the lower end. And how do you know where to start with certain standards when you're trying to break it down? This is all done for you. So we use this for students who haven't yet mastered that performance of expectations. So now we're just going to do a quick poll. I want to see how many of you have either seen or used the resource guide. So Erin's going to put that up for us, and we're just going to take a quick look. And throughout this, I'll try to give you what I call highlightable moments, times when I feel like it's really important that you note things, because you are getting a lot of information at one time. Thank you for participating. I see a lot of you are. Almost all. Whoa, nice. Okay, I think that we can end it there. And so you can see that more than half of you have not used or seen the resource guide. So we're going to give you just a little excerpt, but now you know where to find these resource guides. And I'm telling you, it's a great tool. Even if you're not doing MCAS-Alt, it's a great tool to have at your disposal. So 38% of you, that's good. So there's some of you are familiar with it. All right. Thank you for taking the time to participate with us. Let's move along. And so here is one of the pages from the resource guide. Now this page obviously has the frameworks on it, but it tells us the content area, so we know we're in math. We always want to make sure we're in the correct area. And then the domain, which is in this case number and operation fractions, which is what which Michael Scott is working on. The next thing is I see it's grade 4, and then we have the strand or domain. That's what we just talked about. And that's just a group of standards that's organized around a central theme or concept. So everything in this domain is all about number and operations fractions. Next, we have this cluster heading. You see that on the left? There's 2 different cluster headings. This is just a smaller group of related standards. So you see for NFA 1 and 2 are all related to that cluster on the left. I'm not going to read all that, but you can see it. And then the cluster below it go along with all those standards on that right side. And next we have the actual standards. And I'm sure that you're all familiar with the standard. That's a statement of what all students should know and be able to do by the time they leave that grade. And that is where our students have difficulty, right? So this is where the magic happens. At the top, you see it says entry points and access skills for number and operation fraction standards. And this is for grade 3. We were just in grade 4, but it's okay if we have to come down to grade 3. You can see here that there's a continuum on the top, more complex to less complex. We always start at more complex and work our way back. We want to make sure that we're giving our students an opportunity to learn at their highest level. So just because your student doesn't know something doesn't mean they can't learn it, correct? You can try and see where they are. And we'll talk about how we're going to get there in a minute. So the box here is for entry points. This is one of those moments you want to pay close attention, because the entry points are we're going to base the learning on these entry points. In our assessment, these entry points are going to form what we call a measurable outcome. What's unique about these different outcomes is that these are based on the actual standard. Remember, I talked about how they're unpacked. So they are at a lower level of complexity. Obviously, they start at a higher level of complexity, closer to the actual standard, and then they start going a little bit less complex and less complex, so that we don't lose the essence of the standard, but it's still much lower level. And you are allowed to go from more complex to less complex based on your students' needs. We also have something that's going to help you kind of narrow that down, but just know that you're allowed to spiral down to lower level of complexities. And those are called entry points. The majority of you here today will do entry points. Then we have access skills. A very small number of you will have students that are strictly working at an access skill level. They're working at a developmental skill level. They are strictly working on motor skills or communication skills during a standards-based activity. This is always going to be found at the lowest grade level in each strand or domain. And if you look at some of these, you can see that there are things like orient materials, sustain an activity, turn on a switch. So these are access skills. There'll be a very, very small number of you whose students will be working at access skill level. However, if you are one of those small number, the 1% of the 1% that will be doing access skills, tomorrow there is an access skill training session available. So if you haven't already signed up, please do so. It's very informative. So here's an example from the resource guide. We've just taken the actual standard as written and spiraled it down for you. So the actual standard is on the far right. It's from the number system, and it talks about understanding a rational number. And this is definitely something our students would struggle with doing. I have to say, I might struggle with how this has to be done, but the nice part is we can spiral down. So my student couldn't do it as written, but perhaps they could determine the coordinates of points plotted on a coordinate grid. And the example says it can be from any quadrant. My student can't do that. Well, maybe we can come down and add and subtract numbers with 1 and 2 digit whole numbers. They might be able to do that, but maybe your student can't do that. So we're going to go down to matching visual representation of simple fractions to the fraction itself. So in entry points, I can keep going until I find one that will be at the level of my student, and I can start working at that level for the student. If you have a student that's just doing access skills, they can track the object as it's added or subtracted from a set. The student is not adding or subtracting. The student is only tracking the object, and you're going to take accuracy and independence on the tracking. And we'll get into that a little bit more as we go on. So I have been talking a little bit more about this, but I want to make sure that this is clear. Access skills are for students that have not yet addressed the curriculum directly, okay? And it's due to the severity of their cognitive disability. It's for students with emerging symbolic communication skills. They address developmental milestones such as responding to stimuli or grasping objects. So here's a couple of examples, and these examples are addressed in the context of a standards-based activity. And those activities, and that you will know what those activities would be because it would be in the required strand or domain for that student's grade. So for example, a student activates a device with a pre-recorded word for classmates during an antonym naming game, and that would be for language. Another one could be as the student releases a block from their grasp, the teacher counts as each block drops into the bin, and that would be for math operations and algebraic thinking. I want you to see the student. What they are doing is activating a device. The word has already been pre-recorded, okay? For the other one, the student is releasing the block from their grasp. So that is something that they are working on. They are not counting. So I hope that's clear. Again, we can, if you think you have a student with access skills and you want to come to the training, you can certainly sign up for it. But now I want to see how many of you believe that your students will use entry points and who will use access skills. So please take a moment and think about what we just looked at and the type of entry points there were versus the type of access skills. So Aaron will put that up and we'll just get a feel for if I've explained it correctly. People are giving it some thought here. Oh, I think some of you aren't sure. So we still have quite a few of you that think you would be using access skills. So I want you to, when you have time in between the break, I'd like you to review that PowerPoint and look at the type of developmental skills that the students would be working on and make sure that that is your student, because an access skill student is not making a choice. They may make an errorless choice, but they are not making a choice. An errorless choice means there's no wrong answer. So again, that's fine. Hopefully it'll get a little more clear as we go through. So thank you for taking the time to do that. And let's move on. And we'll talk about the requirements. I want to be really clear that the next slides, in fact, this whole entire, other than self-evaluation and generalized performance, is all about ELA reading, ELA language, and math. So when we talk about the requirements, that's what we're discussing here. So you can see right on the top, I have a core set of evidence for reading, language, and math. For every strand, this is what you should have. We call it a core set of evidence. It's also a complete strand. So you're going to have a strand cover sheet. You're going to have a skills survey, which will be administered for each strand. And I will make sure that I repeat that a lot because it is important to have it for every strand that you submit. Then you're going to have a data chart, and we'll talk about those this afternoon, the kinds of data charts. And we'll also talk about the kind of evidence, but that will be, two pieces of primary evidence that will be submitted with the data chart, the skill survey, and the strand cover sheet. These writing and science, remember those have unique requirements, so please come to that on Friday and we'll discuss what is required for those. Let's break this down a little bit and start with the skills survey. This is required, as I said, for every strand. That should be a highlightable moment. You should not have any strand without a skills survey. And it's basically a pre-testing. You're going to look at a range of skills and you want to complete this prior to choosing an entry point. Okay. And what the skills survey is going to do is help you narrow the field so you get an idea as to where the student is starting from. Excuse me. You're going to print it out and include it, and you're going to put it behind the strand cover sheet, and it's going to be submitted in the portfolio. Just to let you know, and some people are confused, there is one binder for each student, so all the information for all content areas goes into one binder for one student, okay? So everything we talk about here, every form that we talk about that you fill out, and forms and graphs, is still going to have to be printed out and put into this binder. If you want to print out the skill survey prior to filling it out, if you want to, pass it out to your paraprofessionals or the SLP or the OT that you're working with, give it to them, let them fill out areas from observation that they can do, and then give it back to you. And then you can fill out the form online to have. But if it makes it easier to put it on a clipboard and give it to your paras, do that. We hope that this will familiarize you with all of the standards and entry points and select challenging and appropriate entry points. What we were finding is that a lot of teachers were just going to the lowest level entry point without working or seeing that the student was able to work at a higher level. So by by filling out the skills survey, you're going to see some entry points are just way too easy for the student. Also, we have found when we were in person that helping teachers fill it out, they realized that their student might not really be or really should be participating in the MCAS-Alt, that based on the skill survey and what the student was able to do, that perhaps they could do the MCAS with accommodations. So that's also one reason that you want to fill this out completely and accurately. So the survey has some critical skills, and then you're just going to fill it out based on the rubric. So you can see it says that the student can perform the skill rarely, intermittently, more often than not, almost all of the time, and they all are assigned letters. So what you want to do is either come up with 2 or 3 tasks, and some of the surveys have tasks that you can create yourself, or you can use observations, informal assessments, progress reports, classroom work, any of that to fill it out. At this time of the year, you're getting to know your students and their skills. So you're probably doing a lot of informal assessments. It's more than that skill survey can be done that way, just using those informal assessments. Then you're going to select entry points based on the related skills that were checked in A, B, or C. Okay, that means the student hasn't yet learned the skill. So let's take a look at what this is. You're going to select the highest level of complexity in that entry point from the resource guide based on any skill that was checked in A, B, or C. You're never going to select from D and E because that means the student is pretty well on course for mastering it if they haven't mastered it already. If your student is truly an access skill student, they will not be able to perform the skills. So you will have all of column A, and that means the student most likely is access skills. And I already said that for D and E. And we're going to complete this survey for each and every strand. I can't say that enough, because if you don't have it, it will be considered incomplete. So here's what it looks like, right? This is a sample of Michael's skill survey for number and operation fractions. And you'll see that there's 12 lines there. Each and every line must have a radio or must be filled in using that radio button. And Kevin will go through this to show you how that's done. It's easy to miss it, and he will discuss what happens if you miss it, but just make sure you do each and every line. And on top, you can see that that column A is totally unable to do it. And then the rest are 25, 50, 75 to 100. That's why you don't want to select anything from D and E, but you have the choice to do B or C. You are still in charge of choosing what works best, where you think the student is, or perhaps what you're teaching at that time. You want it to correlate with what you are already doing. Okay, so we're going to take a couple of moments and we're going to do some questions and see what you have. We will have our teacher consultants answering some, and I will look to see if there's some answers I can give live. Our teacher consultants are very quick. I can see that. I'm going to answer this again in case you missed it. There is no opting out of the MCAS-Alt. MCAS-Alt is part of the federal law of assessing all students, and if they're receiving public funds, so if you're teaching in a public school, they must be assessed. And also, it's part of your daily instruction. It's not a separate event like the MCAS. If you can't attend, someone is asking if you can't attend the ELA or science workshop on Friday. All of the material is there. The recordings are not up yet, but the PowerPoint and the samples are there for you to review. And once the recordings are up, they will be in that same area. So you can go to that material site if you're unable to attend either the writing or the science on Friday. Oh, good question. So someone asked what accommodations can be provided for the survey skill. Any accommodations that you would typically give your student, you want to see if the student is able to perform that skill. And I think that the numbers on the top are kind of helpful. So can they perform it 25% of the time independently, or do they need more help than that? So yes, you can use accommodations to help you with that skill survey. Oh, excellent. I think, Kevin, I'm going to let you answer Joelle. If a teacher is completing ELA and another is math, should we have the same account?
Sure. Yeah, this question does come up a lot. Technically, you could share an account and both log in and just do the pieces that you want to do. Couple flaws with that. One, make sure your password is generic. You don't want to share a personal password. But the real problem is if you find yourself in the same form for whatever reason at the same time, you're going to fight each other, and you're going to, whoever saves last is going to have the whatever is posted to the database to be on that that form. Because it is an open system, the cleaner way, the way I recommend, is you both create an account. You can both load that student in because it's open. You're just saying you want to add that student. One person does ELA, one person does math. It's all going to filter into a binder at the end anyway, so you can just compile it together. Just one person needs to completely fill out that cover sheet, the MCAS-Alt cover sheet with the demographic. And put that in the front and you're good. I certainly recommend two different accounts, separate the content, and then just put it back right before you compile it all together.
Great, thank you. Dawn is asking a question about the columns that you're going to fill out. You're going to fill out all the columns, A, B, C, D, and E. You're just not going to choose entry points from D or E. That means that the student has most likely mastered that skill, and you don't want to spend time teaching a skill that they already have. We want to use this to help find the skills that they are inconsistent or or don't have yet, and kind of start filling in those gaps. Okay, just a couple more and then we'll move on, because I don't want you to have to wait too long. Mary Jane asked, do students need MCAS-Alt for 9th grade math, or is it 10th grade math? 9th graders do not have to do anything. The only thing they may do is science. So science is optional at grade 9. And a lot of teachers do the science to get it out of the way, but there is nothing else at grade 9 that you need to do. Lauren, okay. Lauren, this is a good question, and I'm glad you asked it. We'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to the entry point, but she's asking about selecting the learning standard. Yes, the learning standard to correspond with the entry point. I don't want you to worry about that, because especially at math, if you're doing a 10th grade math, you may spiral so far back that the standard has no correlation to the entry point because you've gone down to maybe grade 1. What we're asking you to do is just choose a learning standard at the student's grade level, because the thread gets very thin as we spiral back. So it's going to be hard to see any relationship there. But all we need you to do is to select a standard at the student's grade level. And we'll talk about that a little bit more this afternoon. Okay. If we don't get to all your questions right now, we will definitely answer them. And there is a way that we can provide it's not pretty, as Kevin says, it's like an Excel sheet. So you have to kind of dig for the questions and the answers, but they will all get answered before we leave here. If we have any time at the end, you have a lot of questions, but I think some of them are going to be answered as we go on. And some of them are more individual student questions, which you can certainly email me. All right. Let's go on. I'm going to ask you to just don't worry about the questions for now because I don't want you to miss the next section because we're going to talk about how to select a skill for the measurable outcome. So just let your question be. I promise we'll get them answered. But if you're worried about the answer to the question, you aren't going to see what's happening next. Okay. So we're going to look at the strand cover sheet. Remember, we looked at the MCAS-Alt cover sheet that had all the demographics. Now we're going to look at the strand cover sheet because that was part of our core set of evidence. So the strand cover sheet tells us the student's name and the all-important student grade. And that's important for many reasons. It dictates what has to be done, especially in the area of math. So it shouldn't matter for you in a public school. It doesn't usually get mixed up. However, if you're in a collaborative or a private school, sometimes you have multiple students from different grades, multiple grades in one classroom. So you want to be sure that you check the Sims report, that you make sure you have that the grade you put on this aligns with the Sims. So check that out and be sure that they align. Then on the strand cover sheet, we can see that this is mathematics and they're doing number operation fractions. So this is our sample strand. This is Michael Scott. And we're looking at what he's going to do in this strand. So down here in the measurable outcome, and I'm going to make it I'm going to make it a little bit bigger for you. It says that Michael will order decimals on a number line with 80% accuracy and 100% independence. Highlightable moment, okay? That a measurable outcome is something that you're going to choose. And let's give it a moment. This is a goal, and that it's a goal that you are going to choose. Okay, and it's based on the results of the skill survey. It's either an entry point or an access skill in that strand or domain. It identifies the skill to be assessed, and then we add what we call the criteria for mastery. I want you to note that no matter what you put for the criteria for mastery, it does not affect the scoring. I'm going to repeat that. The accuracy, because you're going to write whether you want them to be 80% accurate and 100% independent, even if you think that's really shooting for the moon, it doesn't matter. It will not affect your scoring. What it does, it says to you that when they get to 80% accuracy, you feel that they have mastered it. You can change that to 70%. You can change your independence. Maybe you would be thrilled if they were 60% independent. But again, I want to say that no foul, no harm if you shoot for the sky and you don't get there. It has nothing to do with your scoring. But what does matter is the skill that you chose. That evidence in each strand, including the data points, they're all going to document the student's performance of the measurable outcome, which is the skill. Excuse me. So when you select the skill, it should challenge the student. And if you have used that skill survey correctly, you should help you to narrow down. It shouldn't be so challenging that the student is totally frustrated and rips up the paper or crawls under the table, but it shouldn't be so easy that the student does it in 10 seconds and is not challenged at all. This is sort of like Goldilocks, right? It's got to be just right. You want it to be challenging and attainable. Some things to consider when you're using the resource guide to select your entry point. You want to also look at the verb that's linked to the skill. There are verbs that say describe. There are verbs that say identify or match. You want to be sure that the verb you choose aligns with the skill that you're teaching and the level that your student is working at. There are also examples provided in the resource guide with many of our entry points. So for example, in functions, it says if input is 20 and output is 25, what is the rule? They're giving you a little hint as to how to do that entry point. So look for those in the resource guide. Understand the meaning of pertinent words or concepts in the entry point. This is so important. If you are unsure, please consult with a content expert because it does affect how your skill is scored. If you are not teaching the correct skill, it's not going to agree with your measurable outcome. So don't be afraid to ask, or we also have a wonderful math glossary now that you can look up concepts in there, and that will help you. Also, we've embedded some notes into the resource guide. As you can see, this little box says unit fraction, and it gives you the definition is a fraction with a numerator of 1. Sometimes it's been a while since we've had to teach this information, and so it's just good reminders. So one of the things we want you to do is to remember to assess the entry point or access that you selected. Okay, so it's important when you choose that entry point that you do what you say you're going to do. I'm thinking of having t-shirts made for us. Here's a modification for 2 or more related skills. You might see an entry point that has 2 related skills that are connected by the word and. Option 1 is you are going to choose this entry point and use it as is, and you're going to do both skills. So the measurable outcome says student will solve multiplication and division word problems with 80% accuracy and 100% independence. My brief description, which is telling me what the activity was, says that the student solved 6 multiplication and division word problems on a worksheet. Or another activity was all works, sorry, my apologies. All the work samples and the data points must document both skills. So solving multiplication and division word problems are on all our data points and all our work samples. Okay, so that's option 1. I can use it as is. We're going to make sure that the evidence reflects the measurable outcome. My second option is I can modify that entry point and address only one of those skills. So I decide that my student isn't ready to be assessed on both for word problems. There still needs some work on that. The measurable outcome now says student will solve multiplication word problems with 80% accuracy and 100% independence. My brief description of the activity says that the student solved 5 multiplication word problems on a separate page, then recorded the answer on the worksheet. So all the work samples and the data points are documenting the one skill, solving multiplication word problems. And that is only when 2 skills are related and connected by and. And now, oops, I'm sorry. I'm going to send it to Kevin, and he's going to show us how we're going to find all of this information on forms and graphs.
Thank you, Deb. So one moment while I switch the screen once again. Hold, please. Okay, so here is where we kind of left off before. So we've created a student, we filled out the cover sheet, the MCAS-Alt cover sheet with that demographic information for the student. But where the real work is creating the skill surveys and the strands. The logical way, the way you're supposed to do it, the way you want to do it, is to do the skill survey first, and then you create the strand. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to do it the wrong way just to show you what happens, because there is a hard block. And if you see it, I just want you to know what's going on if you run across it when you do this on your own. So normally you would click skill survey. I'm going to go right to my strands and try to create a strand. And remember, we're going to do the sample for Michael Scott that you see, the number and operations fractions from that materials page for the core concepts is what I'm going to recreate here. So to start, I click strand cover sheet from the table of contents, and you looks kind of like when we built the student list, but instead of building a list of students this time, I'm preparing to build a list of strands for the student that I'm in this case, Mike Scott. Back to the red bar, add a new strand, and I'll get a placeholder for a new strand. This is the first place where locking in that grade really starts to show itself. When I click to go to the cover sheet, I'm going to say I want a math strand, and okay. And it's showing me just what's appropriate for a grade 4. These would change for grade 5. If it was 5, 8, or high school, science would show up in that dropdown. But because it's a 4, I don't see it, and I can only get at these particular strands for math. So it stops you from picking a strand that's not appropriate for what you said the grade of the student is. So we know we want number operations fractions. So I click, and when I click select strand, my expectation is that it's going to start to create the strand for me, but what it's really going to tell me is no. You can't do this. It will stop you from working on a strand until you have completed the skills survey. You can hop right into the skills survey menu from here. I'll show you where you normally will go though, because that's kind of the operation that you want to follow is from the table of contents. So instead of going right into the strand, you want to do the skills surveys first. So go into skills surveys, same sort of look, create a new skills survey this time, and go to select it, and we get a list again filtered. These are the only things that are appropriate for a grade 4 student. And we see it here listed in for number and operations fractions, and select and continue. And we won't concern ourselves right now with what's on this form. I just want to show you the how and what the expectation is to complete it. So all of math will be some version like this, ELA, language, and reading. You'll see a form like this. Writing and science are a little different. So those are in a separate training. So just know anytime you're doing math, you're going to see some version of this. So you working top to bottom, give it a date. And then the number of skills, in this case, we see 12 different lines. Sometimes there's a little bit more, sometimes there's less. It just depends on the strand that you're in. But the thing to keep in mind is every single one of these, in this case 12, every line has to have a selected column here, from A to unable to do it 0% up to almost always at 100%. So you just select with the radio buttons what is appropriate for that student. And eagle-eye people will notice I skipped 11. That's the other thing I'll point out, which catches people. So if I think I completed that, I didn't realize I skipped 11. If I save this, I can go right back to my strands list. Remember, we tried to create that strand first. Now I'm thinking clearly it's going to open. This will be, oh no, nope, it still wants me to complete the skill survey. This time I'll hop right back in there. And remember I said every single line has to have a selection. It doesn't consider it done and complete until every line gets a selection. So if I come back and make a selection for the 11th, just a quick look, yep, I definitely have something for each of the 12 lines. Now when I save this, I can either hop right in my strands, I can go back to my table of contents, strand cover sheet list, and now when I go to open this cover sheet, it's met that requirement and unlocks it for me. So complete skill survey is the key to unlocking to start to build out the strand cover sheet. And if you've been looking at that sample for Michael Scott, you'll notice it kind of looks like what we would expect to see a strand cover sheet look like. And it's carried over any piece of information it knows at this point. So I've got the name, knows what content area, what strand, and we'll just work this top to bottom to teach you how to fill out the required fields. First thing you stumble on is learning standard. The dropdown just has all the learning standards IDs. If you have all those standards memorized and you know what those are, impressive. Most people don't. I would dare say maybe one or two, if that at all. So there's a couple different ways you can get at those. You could go to the department's webpage and grab the full 300-page mathematics resource guide. They're all in there, but it's a lot of either searching, scrolling, finding to do that. In the program, though, you'll notice right next to here, there's a little link that says resource guide. When I click here, it is still just a PDF, but at least it's sort of narrowed the focus. It knows what strand I'm in. So it's pulled out, it's plucked out those pages for just that strand. And I can see, and the grades available change from strand to strand. You'll see this one's 3, 4, and 5. These are grades in this column. So I see standards for grade 3, and then some entry points. Standards for grade 4. And so this is where I can see Michael's a grade 4, so I see the IDs and then the text associated with them. And then again, some entry points. So you can look at these entry points and start to think about what you want to use for your measurable outcome. But there's a better way. There's a more powerful way to attach that and look at those and pull them in. And I'll show you that in just a moment here. But no, they are here. Just the resource guide. It's just the pages that are appropriate for the strand that you're in. So in that dropdown, you can just select the standard that you want. And this catches people sometimes. If you don't, even if I save this page, if I left right now and come back, this would be gone. It's because I haven't really said I want to use that one yet. You got to use the big red button next to it called Get LS Text, Get Learning Standard Text. When I click this, you'll see what happens. It pulls in the text of the learning standard. So until you see that, you haven't attached it, and it'll just keep disappearing on you. But once it's locked in, it's saved behind you, it's done. You don't have to worry about it. So if it seems like that's disappearing, my 99% of the time, they're just not clicking this button. So just keep that in mind. We're going to scroll down. I'm going to skip over level of complexity. So this is where you would say you're working on an access skill or an entry point. I'm not going to do anything with that now. We'll circle back to that as we go. And we come down to 5. So the all important measurable outcome. It is the essence of the strand that you're doing. It is the skill that you're saying of what you're going to work on and assess with that student. It is just a text box. So if you went into that big resource guide or just the link up top, you can just type right in here the measurable outcome that you want to create. The real power, probably the best piece of this entire site is this one button here. It says entry points. It also means access skills. So it's all encompassing. This find entry points button. When I click this, and this is hopefully what locks it in of what's appropriate to select for some people, it's just presented in a different way. So when I click find entry points, I'm moved to a new version. So these are all the entry points from the resource guide that are for this strand. It knows I was a grade 4, so it's pre-selected this grade 4 tab here at the top. You can look at these. The thing to keep in mind, if it is on this page, it is appropriate for the strand. So these are all in play. They're vetted, they're aligned, they're for your use. It's about finding the meaningful skill for your student that you want to work on. So live with the list a little bit, find the one that really represents what you know you need to work on, and assess with the student of the work you have prepared to do. And you can go up. Not many people think they can, but you certainly can. If you have a student that is capable of higher level, more complex tasks, go up. Go up to grade 5 if that's where the skill that you need is at. Totally acceptable. You can also go down. So you can scroll down to the lowest. Some go as low as pre-K. This one happens to end at grade 3. And the thing to keep in mind, the access skills always show up at the lowest grade level. So when I click grade 3 in this case, here they are. They show up at the lowest grade level tab that's available for the student. So here are all the access skills that are appropriate. So it's really about, it's a continuum from within the grade. It goes from more complex to less complex, and generally as you go up to the grades, they get a little more complex and get a little less as you go down. So they're all available for you to use. You don't have to give about a thought about, is it appropriate for the strand? It's more, is it appropriate for the student? Is it meaningful and challenging for the student? In Michael's case, when we look at his measurable outcome, we can kind of see the root of it. It's ordered decimals on a number line is the key concept that we're going for. They're all, the nice thing about this too, it puts them all in one. In the actual resource guide, these are spread over multiple pages by the cluster ID. It's just one big group. It's a nice one-stop shop to look at a lot of them all at once within a grade. So here we go. We've got ordered decimals in a number line, but hey, what is all that other text? Deb kind of mentioned it before, that there are examples in here. So this EG is giving you a sample, particularly in math. They're very heavily used in math, of what it is, some of the higher level concepts. You just need to know an example of it, or a description of, or a better representation of what that might look like. And that's what that's doing with that EG. It's there for you to really get the essence of what that skill is trying to do. But to select it, you click, and it happens quick. When I know this is the one I want, I'll click this radio button, zips me back, and notice it tacked on student will. It grabbed the student's first name, didn't bring that EG with it because that's not part of the skill. That's just an explanation. So it glops that off, and I get just the root of will order decimals on a number line, and it tacks on XX accuracy and XX independence to create the shell of that measurable outcome. Another one of those protect you from yourself features that shouldn't be XX. You're meant to overwrite that. Remember, it is a text box. And again, if I tried to print this to attach it in, if I save this page and go to print just the cover sheet, it's going to yell at me. It's going to say, no, thank you. XX percentage is not appropriate in a measurable outcome. So if I go back down, I can give it a, in this case, Michael was 80% accurate and 100% independence for his measurable outcome goal. And now when I save this and I go to print just this cover sheet, it's met that requirement. It's not seeing any XX percentages, and it will do the formatting to give me a version that will attach to the strand for me. Also notice I didn't do anything for number 4, level of complexity. Looking at it on that picked list on that web page, I don't even know what page it came from the resource guide, but the system knows where it's pulling it from. So it's checked off entry point for me, and it said I found that on page 67, because that's when they're scored, it's validated that that indeed was a skill in the resource guide, so that they look at that page to confirm that it's there. So it will just do that for you. If you use that picker, you don't have to do anything with line 4. It will just do it for you of selecting the appropriate skill. Normally, I would talk about line 6. We'll get that this afternoon. And when we talk about the rest of it, of data charts and work description labels, but just know this is where you can talk about like combinations or modifications, scribes, things like that. But we'll revisit that this afternoon when we come back, and we'll pick up after Deb shows you how to do what's required in data charts and how to what goes in them, and work samples to attach to evidence. We'll come back here and I'll show you how to build it out in the system. So back to Deb to wrap it up.
Don't go yet. Don't go yet.
Oh, sure.
Can you, it seems like a lot of people missed where to find your forms and graphs. Would you mind just one more time showing everyone how to get there?
Yeah, so it's the kind of thing you got to go a couple places to get where you want to be, and then just bookmark it. So start at the materials page, which has been the link that's been in the chat throughout the day. Go to the departments page, or if you have that already bookmarked. So right here with the manuals and resource guides and tools. So once you get to this page where you see those full resource guides, just scroll right to the bottom, and it's hiding right here at the bottom. So this link, I think it'll work since I'm logged in. Let's see what happens. It'll take it. Yep, it'll take you right to the login page, and you go registration, create your account, and away you go.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
I think some people come in at different times, and aren't sure where it is. So you should all be aware of that. I'm sorry, we're 3 minutes over. We can stay for about 5 minutes if you still have more questions. When you come back, I want to make sure. Kev, can you get me back to my PowerPoint? And then, so if you want to stay for another like 5 minutes, if you have that time, and then otherwise using that same link, you're going to come back to us at 1:30. But I would suggest that you use that time, if you can, to go into the forms and graphs to get yourself set up. You don't have to put all your students in or anything, but maybe just get yourself set up so you start getting familiar with what it looks like and it's bookmarked, and just start thinking about the students and how you're going to get those skill surveys completed. So use this time if you're given the whole day to join us for this session and you don't have to go back to the classroom. Take the time to get yourself organized and remember that we're here to help you, and we'll be back again at 1:30, but we'll stay for another 5 minutes. So 10:40 we'll log off, but we will answer any questions you have until then. Okay.